What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the RAL MG. And kicking it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, and with this gun, it's going to be a 2 to 3 shot kill. However, it is fairly unforgiving when it comes to that 2-shot kill potential. Not only do you have to be within the maximum damage range, but you also have to land both shots to the upper torso, or you could mix a headshot in with a shot anywhere else in the body. In every other situation, it's going to take you 3 shots to kill, no matter the range or the body multiplier that you're hitting them in. Next, let's get into our open bolt delay, which with this gun, we have the biggest open bolt delay in the entire game at 72 milliseconds. What this means is when you pull the trigger, there will be a 72 millisecond delay before the gun actually goes off. And then every round fired after that, as long as you're holding down the trigger, that will fire normally. It's just for the first shot fired every time you stop firing and then pull the trigger again. But after that, our rate of fire is 556 rounds per minute, which is quite slow. It is the slowest in the LMG category. However, we still have a ridiculously fast time to kill potential. With a 2-shot kill, our time to kill potential is 108 milliseconds. And this is the fastest killing full auto gun in the entire game when it comes to body shots at least. And then even with our 3-shot kill, we have a 216 millisecond time to kill, and that's still a very competitive time to kill, especially when we're talking really long ranges. Not many guns are going to compete with that sort of time to kill at long range. Now, just a reminder, I don't include the open bolt delay in my time to kill values here, so you may want to add that open bolt delay on top of the time to kill to get more of your true practical time to kill value, but I just prefer keeping them separate and being aware of both. After that though, let's have a look at our bullet velocity, and it turns out we have the fastest bullet velocity in the entire game at 730 meters per second. This is just a little bit faster than all of the LMGs, and it's faster than literally everything else. As for our range, we only have one single damage drop-off point, and that occurs at 42 meters, which is an amazing maximum damage range for any gun in this game. And that's also where our 2-shot kill potential to the body will end. Anything beyond that will be a 3-shot kill, unless you're able to hit 2 headshots in a row, in which case you still could get a 2-shot kill. As for hipfire, quite surprisingly, we have the best hipfire spread in the LMG category with the RAL MG. But having said that, guns like this that have a slow rate of fire tend to not be very good for hipfiring, simply because any missed shots with a slow rate of fire will really noticeably harm your time to kill potential compared to something that has a really fast fire rate, where missing the odd bullet here or there won't have a massive impact on your time to kill. After that though, let's have a look at our idle sway, and as we can see there's a fair amount of movement while aiming down sight, and this is something you typically want to get under control, especially for a gun like this, because this gun really excels at longer ranges, and you really want to make sure you're hitting that first shot very accurately. And speaking of accuracy, let's have a look at our recoil with this gun, keeping in mind we're just doing a 30-round recoil plot. And as we can see here, this gun doesn't really kick up a whole lot. That magnitude is capped pretty hard. However, for the first several shots fired, well, they generally kick pretty much straight upwards. There is a bit of a gap between each of those shots, and this is something that can absolutely throw you off target at longer ranges, and therefore it's something you definitely want to be aware of, and I would recommend attachments that help with vertical recoil control if you want to take care of this gap between those initial shots fired. As for handling, unfortunately we have the slowest aim down sight time in the LMG category at 510 milliseconds. That is an extremely slow aim down sight time, and therefore it's inherently going to limit this gun when it comes to aggression. You typically want to be hanging back and treating this like a proper LMG. And it turns out it also has the slowest sprint out time in the LMG category as well. It's the only outlier with a 270 millisecond sprint out time. So you definitely want to be aware of those things. This isn't the type of LMG that you can get away with being aggressive with. It's typically something you want to hang back and pick people off with. Now going off of that, our reload add time is also the slowest in the LMG category at 6.7 seconds. This is extremely slow, and therefore you probably want to be planning out your reloads whenever possible. At least one saving grace with this part is it does have quite a large magazine and a very slow fire rate, so you won't have to reload nearly as often as something that has a significantly faster fire rate. And then finally, for the base stats of this gun, let's get into our mobility stats, and unfortunately, the trend continues. The RAL MG is the slowest across the board for every one of those mobility stats compared to all of the other LMGs in the game, which just further cements the fact that this is not designed for aggression. And with that, it's finally time to move into some attachments, and we're going to start this off with the barrel attachments and how they impact our ranges. And with the RAL, we have access to 3 different barrels. The first one reduces our ranges by about 7%. It's really not that bad. You'll probably not even notice that. The second barrel has no impact on our range values. And then finally, the third barrel will increase our range by 16%, which is nice, although I would say not really necessary with a gun like this. Then let's have a look at how these barrels will impact our recoil. And as we can see here, the first barrel definitely seems to cut down on our recoil. A nice thing as well is those initial shots fired, the gap between those shots isn't quite as bad as the base, and it also kicks literally just straight upward before cutting to the right after about 5 or 6 shots fired. So that actually noticeably helps with our recoil. The second barrel, I would also say, is a slight improvement over the base recoil. And then finally with the third barrel, this doesn't seem to be significantly better or worse than the base recoil. Honestly, it looks pretty much the same. But then finally for our barrel attachments, let's have a look at how they impact our aim down sight speeds. And as we can see here, the first barrel adds a little bit to our aim down sight time, but it's not that bad. It's only an extra 10 milliseconds or so. Whereas the other 2 barrels will add a very noticeable amount to our aim down sight time. And honestly, I don't feel like the upsides for those barrels outweigh the downsides of this slower aim down sight speed. As for our magazine attachments though, we do have access to a 100 round belt mag, which will take our aim down sight time all the way up to 560 milliseconds. And honestly, I feel like this is unnecessary for a gun that fires this slow to begin with. Whereas the 50 round belt mag reduces our aim down sight time down to 485 milliseconds, which is a very noticeable improvement. And like I've been saying, since the fire rate is quite slow on this gun, it doesn't really burn through magazines very quickly, and as a result, the 50 round belt mag is a great choice in my opinion. And that is where we can finally move on to some excellent attachment combinations that I've got for you guys, and the first one I'm going to share is my preferred method of running the RAL MG. This is my all-around build. So with this, we have the SA side grip underbarrel, which is a unique attachment to this gun. That one helps with our aiming idle stability, our aim walking steadiness, our recoil steadiness, and our recoil stabilization. So lots of great benefits there, although it does hurt our sprint to fire and aim down sight speed. We also have the XRK Kraken muzzle, which is the one that helps with vertical recoil control more than any of the other muzzles in the game, and that's what this gun needs the most, so I find that to be the best muzzle to use for this. We also have the OLEV laser, the 50 round belt mag, and the Slimline Pro optic. With this setup, our aim down sight speed is only 10 milliseconds slower than the base, which is not bad considering we have significantly better recoil here. This thing is an absolute laser beam. There's still a little bit of a jump between the first and second shot fired, and you do have to be aware of that and compensate for it. But if you do, this thing is laser accurate. And our sprint out time is also noticeably improved, although still a little bit on the slow side at 234 milliseconds. With this build right here, you obviously still need to treat this like an LMG. It's still got quite a slow aim down sight time and slow mobility, for instance. But as far as locking down lanes and long lines of sight, there is not a whole lot that's going to reliably compete against this gun once it's already aimed down sight. As for the second build that I've got for you guys, I'm once again going to share a build with the canted laser, since a lot of people seem to like this with this gun. And honestly, for smaller maps like Shipment or Shoot House, for instance, if you're really grinding through camos or levels or whatever you're doing with this gun, I find this setup is best for those types of maps where you're simply not going to find really long lines of sight anyway. So with this, we're obviously using the canted Vibro.7 laser. We're once again using that XRK Kraken muzzle. With this, we also have the demo folding stock, which helps us the most with our mobility and our aim down sight speed and our sprint out time, which this setup is really geared toward. And we have the Bruen Q900 grip wrap, as well as the armor piercing ammo. And the armor piercing ammo is primarily just so we can punch through cover and potentially get some easy kills through light cover. And with this setup, we've definitely got more recoil than the base recoil with this gun, but that's really not what we're building it for. It's designed for more close range encounters. So more importantly, our aim down sight speed is now 450 milliseconds, which is a significant improvement over the base aim down sight speed of this gun. And our sprint out time is also very noticeably better, and with all of this in mind, it just helps this gun be a bit more competitive for those really small close quarters maps. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the RAL MG. As for my thoughts on this gun, I feel like I can definitely recognize the potential and the power that's there. If you like locking down long lines of sight and lanes on a map, this gun is incredible for that. Having said that, it just doesn't suit my playstyle. I like typically being a bit more on the aggressive side, and as a result, this gun just doesn't mesh well with me, and I don't love it that much for that reason, but I also acknowledge that that is very subjective. Now, of course, those are just my thoughts on the RAL MG, and I'd love to hear what you guys think of this gun in the comments down below, and if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes of Gun Guides, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed this one, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.